butter is a fundamental ingredient in pastry making. I had decided to go fully plant-based. I was starting to feel like my two worlds are not really in alignment anymore. Working in kitchens and the ingredients I were working with versus how I was living my life outside of work. I just was really unhappy with the ingredients that were available to me. I really wanted to have a bigger impact in the food world. Your butterfat butter is for your laminated doughs, your enriched doughs, your biscuits, pie doughs, things like that. And then the lower butterfat butter is for cookies and cakes and ganaches, your cooking applications. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was mimicking that and creating two different products that could do that. And no other plant-based butters had or have done that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. Imagine you're a pastry chef rolling out laminated dough day in and day out. Sounds pretty dreamy, right? But then as time goes on, you realize at your core, you're a vegan. And the one ingredient you work with every day? Butter. Today's guest faced this exact dilemma and decided to do something about it so that everyone can enjoy baking and cooking with vegan ingredients, all with a high-quality result. Please welcome founder of Tourlami, Susannah Schoolman. Hello. Hi. I am so happy to have you on here today. I can't wait to talk all things vegan ingredients and entering that world. And I just love talking to pastry chefs. Like, I'm just a big pastry girl myself. So,
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about pastries all day, so we're in good company today.
We just came off the holiday season. We're all doing that, pull back on sugar and butter and everything. But, Valentine's Day and everything else is around the corner. So we're just gearing up again for sweet treats.
I mean, I feel like every day is a good day for a sweet treat. So January 1 onwards, sweet.
Keep going. Well, Susannah, I always love to start at the beginning here. So tell us a little bit when you first fell in love with food. What was eating and cooking like in your household growing up?
Yeah, I think that I was just always in love and enamored with food. It was a really big part of my upbringing. My mom cooked every meal for us. My dad had a garden. He still has a garden. He grew vegetables and fruit. And we always made it a point to sit down every night together for dinner. I was just like where my family came together. So there was just a lot wrapped up in food. It was excitement. It was, happiness. It was spending time with my family. I always loved food. It was my sister and I were very adventurous eaters growing up. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, it was great for my parents. But, there was just so much excitement and interest in the food that we were eating. So I think my parents did a really good job of kind of keeping that excitement going for us. So it was fun.
That is awesome. Yeah. I always love the stories too of someone who's grown up with a family with a garden and that they know how to pull from it, because you and I probably also grew up during that same time of convenience was everything. And so it's mashed potatoes usually came from a box instead of a potato that you picked from the ground.
Definitely. Yeah. It was funny. I was talking to my mom recently about, what my favorite foods were growing up. And she was like, oh, you loved chicken nuggets and waffle fries.
Yeah, girl.
I was like, you never let it eat those. So of course that was what, we got that when they went out and we had a babysitter. It was just we got chicken tenders, and waffle fries, and it was the most excited we ever were. So I don't know. It's everything in balance.
That's very true. And so it sounds like you weren't a vegan from an early age. I want to hear a little bit about your career journey before Tourlami and when you really found yourself saying this was an important part of your life, an important part of your core values that you wanted to lean into.
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted to be in the food industry, even from a young age. And so my first job working in kitchens was when I was 18. So I was a freshman in college, and I had worked at a restaurant. I was working the line as a pastry cook, and just really exciting. I loved that energy. I liked being, in the kitchen, surrounded with other really talented, knowledgeable chefs. And so I worked in kitchens all throughout college, and restaurants, bakeries, hotels. I really wanted to experience everything that I could. And then right when I graduated, I was in Philly for college, and then I moved back to New York City, which is where I'm based, and helped open up a restaurant called Lincoln Ristorante. During my college years, I had worked at Bouchon Bakery as an intern for 6 months. And then all of that team basically moved over and helped open up Lincoln Ristorante and Lincoln Center. And so I was a part of that opening team. It was a really exciting time, just with Jonathan Beno and Richard Capizzi, the executive chef and the pastry chef, who were running the kitchens. And, like, the talent that I was surrounded by, just like everybody that has left that kitchen has just gone on to do something which is truly incredible. So that was an amazing time for me working in restaurants. I think during that time was when I really understood that restaurants were not for me. That was just like, that was the energy, they were not the hours that I wanted. It was too much fast-paced stress. And I really learned that I did like doing a lot of the like repetitive work. Yeah. And I think that that's where bakery life really came into play for me. And so I ended up moving to San Francisco. I connected with Belinda Leon of Bee Patisserie. I helped her open up Bee Patisserie, and then went on to help her open up 2 more locations. So the second location in San Francisco, Bee on the Go, and then Bee Patisserie on Oahu. And that was when I really learned where I loved baking, which was like making croissants and making laminated doughs. It was that same process each day, but every day was a little bit different. You were working with like a living, active being, and it was active. And so you just really had to kind of work with the dough. And so I think that that's just really where I fell into a groove and kind of found where I fit in the industry. And then after that, and this is where vegan kind of came into play, but I had decided to go fully plant-based right before I moved to Hawaii. And at that point, I was starting to feel like, okay, maybe my 2 worlds are not really in alignment anymore. Like working in kitchens and the ingredients I were working with versus how I was living my life outside of work. And so I thought that maybe I wanted to take a step back from kitchens in that capacity and do my own thing. But then I had this opportunity to move to Copenhagen and then help Richard Clark, which is formerly of Tartine, and then Vinay Woodzepi of Noma, open up her bakery as their head of pastry in St. Osbury. So I was like, that's an opportunity that I really just felt like I had to explore. And so then I moved to Copenhagen, and then I helped open up that bakery. And then it was during that time that I was there that, 2 things happened where I was really excited and happy about the work that I was doing, but also knowing that that was just like really no longer my path and that I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, that capacity. And so then I decided to leave, and that's how I kind of started. So that's kind of my past professional trajectory and what got me to this.
That is so cool. I mean, I want to go to Copenhagen so badly for the pastries alone.
It's an amazing city. It's gotten even better since I left. So it is.
And seems just like everyone's just so happy. And maybe it's the pastries, maybe it's like, treating people like human beings, a combination of both. But I'd like to experience that.
It's just in small cities or where it's at, it's great. I think the thing for me that I loved was just like there was a lot of rule following, which I really hated, it's this huge biking culture. And because of that, everybody needs to follow the rules. Otherwise there'll be accidents and people are going to get hurt. And so it's just like this mutual respect for everyone that I loved it. Oh, I loved it.
Yes. And that makes sense that you love leaning into the baking side of things too. Like, I appreciate baking because it's rules, right? I mean,
I love it.
If you don't follow recipe to a T, unlike cooking where you can have a little riff here and there, like, you will not have the bake that you're looking for. And Prue Leith and Paul Hollywood are going to come out and tell you.
Exactly.
In your own kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, like I love rules maybe to a fault, but yes, that's why bakery life worked so well for me and restaurants did not work well for me, is just because there's just too much that I was constantly getting bombarded with in restaurants, whereas it felt a little bit more like under my control when I was working in bakeries. And so
it sounds like almost like baking is almost like the Danish folk and like restaurants are like the American folk who are just like in your face,
Really the New York City.
Yes.
It's like, yes, that's...
And I do love New Yorkers. So
yes.
I'm interested by this because you're kind of someone who naturally loves rules, but butter is just such this natural ingredient and natural rule when it comes to pastry work. And you're now breaking the rule in a way by saying this can be vegan. So talk to me a little bit more about that time period. You were feeling that internal battle, that dichotomy of, I love exactly what I'm doing, but there's elements of it that really just don't fit with who I am anymore. So what really made you say that you believed in yourself enough to be an entrepreneur? And what got you started recipe testing this type of butter?
Yeah. So I think that when I first had gone plant-based, I was kind of like, okay, now what am I going to do? What's my next step? At first, I thought I wanted to create my own plant-based pastry line. And when I really started to think about the kinds of products that I wanted to work with and the ingredients I wanted to work with, I just was really unhappy with the ingredients that were available to me. And so I think that I thought about like butter is a fundamental ingredient in pastry making, also in savory cooking, right? There's just like butter is a fundamental.
The good butter, as I say when I
good-
put it in the pan.
The good butter. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to create a really good butter that will work well for the pastries that I'm going to make for like maybe pop-ups, brick and mortar location, whatever that was. I was still kind of like, I'm making this plant-based pastry line.
Right.
And I really started to think about it. I saw that there is so much more outside of just the products that I was going to make with this butter, like the potential of this butter that I was going to make. And I really wanted to have a bigger impact in the food world. I think sometimes it can feel very, not isolating, but, you know, like your mindset kind of narrowed where like you're working day in and day out on pastries and it's a craft and it's a skill, but sometimes you lose sight of perspective. Like I get really upset if something burns, right? And then like my whole day is ruined. And so I just felt like I needed to have a little bit more of an impact on like the larger food systems that were at play. And so I really wanted to think about creating the highest quality products that I possibly could that could make a change to the way that people eat. I think that 68% of the global population is lactose intolerant. So it's not just solely about being vegan or plant-based. It's also about people who are lactose intolerant, who don't consume dairy. And so that was my focus. And so my process was really thinking about what butters am I working with? You know, we worked with two different kinds of butters in the kitchens that I worked in, like your lower butter fat, your 80% butter fat butter, and then your higher butter fat butter, 82, 83, 86% butter fat.
And that's for the pastries and the other is for cooking more?
Yeah. So your butter fat butter is for your laminated doughs, your enriched doughs, your biscuits, pie doughs, things like that. And then the lower butter fat butter, yes, is for cookies and cakes and ganaches, your cooking applications, your spreading toast. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was mimicking that and creating two different products that could do that. And no other plant-based butters had or have done that.
No.
To date.
No.
So
you and I chatted about this. Like I tried a plant-based butter in the last 10 years from the grocery store, you know, something spreadable. Again, was leaning into the how can I be more animal friendly and plant based in my eating when I'm not a vegetarian or vegan myself. And it almost tasted fishy.
yeah.
And I never went back because I was like, I can do other swaps. This is okay, but this one did not hit. And I appreciate that you're leaning into butter because we do see plenty of vegan alternatives for eggs already on the market.
Yeah, sure. You know, like I think that there's so much room to grow into other things when you start with a foundation ingredient, right? So by starting with butter allows me to move into creating other products. You know, we're going to be launching a frozen ready to bake line. And so like using the butter as a foundational ingredient for that. And so it just really allowed us to grow and expand while also thinking about like a good croissant really comes from the butter that you use, the flavor profile, the plasticity of it, as well as technique. And so making sure that everything can taste good. And we're just bringing the whole industry up by creating really delicious foundational ingredients. So
definitely. So talk to us about how you developed the recipe for this product. I mean, how long did it really take? What were some of those iterations like? Were there some oops that you were like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to come together? And I also want you to tell us a little bit more behind the name. I mean, not just a French word, but your own French word.
Yes. You know, it's so interesting when I created the name. So the brand's name is Tourlami. It comes from two French words, Tourier and Laminoir. I think at the core of the business, what I really wanted to focus on is that this is a product made by chefs for chefs and pastry chefs and food professionals. And so I wanted to be really intentional, not only with the ingredients that I was using, but, you know, creating these two different butters, what the functions were. And so Tourier in French, a Tourier is a person who's responsible in the brigade system for all dough production and manufacturing. So it's a baker. And then a laminoir is a laminator or a sheeter. So it's the equipment that we use to roll out doughs. And so just thinking about, I wanted to pay respect to the culture and like the cuisine that I dedicated most of my career to, and then really think about who's using this, how are they using it, and then creating a product to fit that. And so, my production process really came from trial and error. It took me 2 years until I created both the recipes to the point where I felt ready to start going through the manufacturing process, which also took another 2 years, doing my plant tests, finding my manufacturer, doing the pilot plant test, and then launching. It really started from thinking about what is butter? What is it made out of? What are the reasons why it works? It doesn't? What's the melting profile? What is the mouthfeel? And kind of starting from there and then working my way backwards. So thinking like, okay, if there's 80% butter fat, there's around 20% water. And so how do I recreate that? Or, like what is the flavor profile of butter? It's grassy, it's nutty, it can have a sweet cream flavor. And so what are the things that I need to do to kind of emulate that? And so my first test was very discouraging. I just took a bunch of ingredients. I took carrot juice and I just put them in a blender, and then I tried it, and then I gagged, and I was like, okay, I think I need some outside help to just get me on the path that I needed to get on. So I had the framework, and then I called a bunch of fat specialists. I, was talking to them about the ins and outs of fats and emulsification, and kind of created my recipe from there. And then I worked with a food scientist who really helped me to mostly source the ingredients. And cocoa butter is one of our main saturated fats. And so it's one thing to buy cocoa butter from the grocery store. It's then another to buy it in metric tons, which is what we buy it in now. And so I needed to make sure that I was working with the ingredients that I ultimately knew I wanted to take into the pilot plant and manufacturing stages of the company. So they helped me to really source those ingredients. And then I built a test kitchen for myself.
Nice.
And I'd made the butter. I would try the butter, and then I'd bake with it. And then I would analyze those pastries. And I did that over and over and over again for 2 years, making tweaks each time. Maybe I made croissants, chocolate chip cookies, and shortbread. So I kept that consistent the entire time so that I could really watch the progress of the pastries. And then I would also start making, other things, like baking buttercreams and brioche and cakes and cookies. But, really making sure that those 3 foundational recipes, I was seeing the improvement. And that really helped to dictate when I knew that my recipes were done, was when I was like, I feel like this is as far as I can take it before I then go to the manufacturing to get that creaminess that I'm looking for, that plasticity and the malleability that comes from the manufacturing. So.
Wow. I love that you looked at it so scientifically too. You had your 3 controls. And you went into the science of the breakdown of butter itself. So tell us a little bit more about where you ended up in terms of ingredients if there's anything, secret you can't tell us, let us know. But I'm curious about where you ended up here, because I have a trouble with my nut allergy. So many vegan products, especially if you're going in the dairy sector, lean into nuts.
Yeah. Totally. I wanted to make sure that this product is accessible to as many people as humanly possible, avoiding soy, palm oil.
Yep.
It was really important for me. So cocoa butter and coconut oil are the main saturated fats. Butters are soy-free, nut-free, palm oil-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, non-GMO, kosher. Really wanted to make sure that I was just kind of checking all the boxes. But the cocoa butter was really the most important part for me. It was making sure that the cocoa butter is really what brings that richness, that creaminess, that mouthfeel. Coconut oil, when you put it on your palate, it immediately melts and then just feels really greasy. Cocoa butter has that richness to it where it has a higher melting point, so it takes a longer amount of time to melt on your palate, so you're getting a richer experience. And that hardness also helps to equate to flakier products. So when I'm making croissants or kouign-amann or biscuits, pie dough, all of that, it really comes from the cocoa butter. So making sure that I was choosing the right saturating fats to unsaturated fat ratio, the amount of water that was in the product. So I wanted to feel really comfortable eating this butter every day and making sure that I was putting in the least amount of ingredients that I possibly could and the highest quality ones that I could. So balancing that out so that it was a product that I would feel comfortable eating every day and would want to eat every day.
Definitely.
That's kind of where that was coming from.
And what ingredient then almost mimics the taste of butter? because at the end of the day, you want it to feel seamless and not like you said, like coconut oil or avocado oil or olive oil, where you're like, oh, you get such distinct flavor profiles from each of those.
Yeah, so the fats that we're using are deodorized. So you're not going to really be tasting the cocoa butter or the coconut oil. Some people have said that they can, which is fine. I think that like every palate will pick up things differently. But for the most part, they're pretty neutral in terms of the flavor that they're imparting. I think that like that nuttiness and that kind of comes from the cocoa butter. So that really helps with the flavor profile. We did work with a flavor house to create a flavor profile that I wanted. I think eventually I want to get into more of like fermented ingredients that we're adding into the butter to help with that flavor profile. But it just felt like having this fermented element to it was just going to make it really hard on the manufacturing side of getting somebody who could help to create that and have a facility to do that. So I just really wanted to keep things as seamless as I could. But like, again, the flavoring comes from, it's like all natural.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's the part that kind of, I think was the hardest to fine tune.
Oh, yeah.
With the flavor profile, having the balance of sugar and salt and like the flavor that we use all needed to come together or really seamlessly. And I think we did it, which makes me really happy, but it took years.
Yeah, it is like running a science test. Like, 5 years to get a perfect product like that. So when was your official launch date? When did you say the baby can be revealed to the world? And what were the first few sales and the reactions like?
Yeah, so it was in August of 2023. And so that was when we had gotten our first purchase order in. We had partnered with the Chef's Warehouse and for food service distribution only. And leading up to that, we had done a pilot plant run where we literally had blocks of butter that didn't have any branding on it. It was just like, here's some butter. It's a sample. And I like hit the streets of New York City and I was just giving butter to everybody that I possibly could before it's even being like available for purchase. And it was exciting. Like I think that people had genuinely never seen a product like Tourlami before. And so it did take a little bit of education. I think that people are very used to working with either their dairy-based butters or the plant-based butters that were on the market. And a lot of them were palm oil-based. And so there was a very different system and method of working with these products. Yeah. And so coming in with a product that is cocoa butter, it's a really hard fat. And so if you work with it cold, it's going to be a pretty challenging experience. It was a huge learning opportunity for me of just like, how do I talk about this butter? What do I need to say? How do I need to educate the chefs so that they can have a successful trial? So that was a big learning lesson for me. But, it was great. And it really helped to shape the foundation of how I talk about the butters.
Definitely. You did such great customer discovery and by going out there and being like, is this something that people even like? So what was the biggest difference that you were seeing that people were saying? What was something they thought either was amazing and you were like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted? What were some things that were that first feedback of like, I don't know if I want to switch my butter over here? Essentially, like, how are you still breaking through the misconceptions behind vegan ingredients and that they can be just as high quality as non-vegan ingredients that these chefs have been used to working with?
Yeah, so I think that when I first introed the butter to people, like one of the big things that I say is that like, this is not like your typical plant-based butter. And again, it has to do with the ingredients of palm oil versus cocoa butter and coconut oil. Much harder fats than palm oil. And so sometimes it's challenging when I'm working with like an all-vegan bakery to try and get them to switch the butter over. Their end result is going to create a much higher quality product and it's going to give them more of what they're looking for. But the fact that they have to change all of their systems makes it a really daunting task. And so like the way that I've worked with all plant-based places is like, we'll start with one program. So maybe we'll look at like the laminated doughs or your cakes, and then we can kind of build upon that. A lot of the success that we've seen have been from non-vegan chefs where they want to add a vegan item onto their menu. And so again, it's just the training of being like, okay, when you work with dairy-based butter for croissants, you want to make sure that your dairy-based butter is super cold.
Yes.
When you're working with Tourlami, when you're working with Tourlami Premium for lamination, you need to work with it super warm. And then I had to educate them on why that's the case. And so there was a little bit of re-educating and kind of like undoing a lot of the lessons that we've learned that have been just like pounded into us of like butter must be cold, dough must be cold, everything in the process must be cold for dairy-based lamination versus everything needs to be a little bit warmer. So that was a big thing for me when I was going through, I think that the misconception that I'm also faced with a lot is that there are some plant-based butters that have been around for a really long time. And I'm super grateful for the fact that they were there and they were able to provide this option. I think that a lot of those plant-based butters were created for like, this is your everything butter. This is your spreading on toast. This is your cooking. This is making your buttercreams. This is like your biscuits. And there wasn't really more evolution on that. It's like, here's this one product that will do everything. And in kitchens, we don't even use the same dairy-based butter for all of our applications. Right. And so I think that when people saw another plant-based butter coming into the market, they thought, okay, this is just going to be another one of these plant-based butters. And so I really had to kind of tell them, no, we are the only plant-based butter that has two different butters for different functional applications. We do use cocoa butter, which is different from every other plant-based butter that's on the market. And this is why we use it. And so I think that there's still a little bit of pushback on why do they want to pay for a higher quality ingredient like cocoa butter? Right. But I think like once they kind of understand why it's expensive and they see the results, they're like, okay, yeah, I get it. So I think it all comes from education. It all comes from talking to chefs. I bake pastries every time I meet with a chef so that they can really see how the puff looks and tastes and how flaky it is, how buttery it is. Cookies, cakes, really trying and mix it up so that chefs can really see the versatility of the butters so that they get excited and may start thinking about, okay, this is how I can use it in this application or this application. So
exactly. Like I almost hate the word expensive. For you, you're high value. I mean, you've got 2 SKUs, which is completely different, as you said. You're using cocoa butter, which, as we know, in the last few years, this climate, the price of it has just been increasing, unfortunately, due to environmental and, human reasons that we've implemented on ourselves. So what have you also been doing as you see those types of challenges hitting you? How are you pushing through when you've got something like your main ingredient is skyrocketing in terms of price?
Yeah, it was really hard. It came at the worst possible time for us as a business. Basically the spike started happening in like December 2023. So like a few months after we had left. And our entire profit margin just kind of diminished. I think that working in the industry, really understanding that, the cost of ingredients are just going up and it just creates more and more stress on the chefs to keep creating the food and keeping the doors open. And so I really made it a point to not raise our prices and just kind of take that hit and just try and get through it. And we were fortunate to have that happen. And fortunately, the price of cocoa butter is going down, but like it quadrupled in price.
Oh, God.
Basically within like 2 months, not even. And so it was a very jarring time for us to figure out like, how do we survive this? And so it was just really like one day at that point and just putting everything into growing and expanding and just trying to increase our production so that we could get better prices for our ingredients and things like that so that we could keep our price the same.
I mean, that's really amazing of you. First of all, kudos, because it's really hard to make that decision just from keeping your business alive and that perspective versus your ultimate mission, which is getting this type of butter and this type of philosophy in more people's hands, in their mouths, so that they can join you on this journey and understand like how amazing it is. And the 2020s, I don't even know what to say anymore. Each year has been so hard.
So brutal. They were definitely months where I was like, I don't know. I don't think we're going to make it. And then something just happened. It was always like, at the last minute, okay, something happened, something came through, but it was really dark.
Yeah. And that's that's entrepreneurship too. You can have the best thing happen in a single day and a few hours later, you're like, oh, great. Did anyone see this news that affects us really directly?
Like the biggest test has been on my emotional well-being throughout all of this, because it can be so challenging. It can be so great and so fulfilling, but it can also just be like the weight of the world is just, you're like, on your back and just trying to like move through each day. So
absolutely. I want to hear something happy about this as well. In addition to like you pushing through, which is also inspiring. I mean, you've worked with in addition to yourself, I mean, your background is incredible. You have worked with some of the most amazing pastry chefs around the world. What have been some of their reactions as they've tested and tasted Tourlami?
I mean, it's always great. It's always great to see the people that you've worked with try the products and just be very impressed with what you've done. I want to see more food service professionals addressing problems that they see within kitchens, whether that's, ingredients or machinery, whatever it is, and create products that solve the issues. I think like one of the positives of doing this is that I get to be in kitchens and get to talk to chefs. We have this mutual understanding of like, yes, these are the problems that we've faced, but this is how this product is going to fix the problems that you're seeing day in and day out. So like, it's super fulfilling to be able to see people understand how these products are different and make things that are really exciting, delicious and creative and pushing boundaries. And it's just, it really has been very positive and very exciting for me. So it's like, it hasn't been all bad. It's like,
There's just tough moments.
tough moments, super tough moments, but also super fulfilling and gratifying. And like when I see the different chefs that are using the products, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe that like this chef is using it, or about the butter. And it just, it's like, I'm constantly like, I can't believe that I did this. I can't believe I launched this company. I left the world that I knew, and there was no other option. I was like, I'm going to be a baker. I'm going to be a pastry chef. I'm going to work in food. And then all of a sudden I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. And then I was like, now what? And like, I'm super thankful for everybody that has believed in the butter and loves the butter and uses the butter and spreads the word. So it's just like, I'm super thankful.
Yes. And how have you seen things then grow amongst your customer base? So you work with the Chef's Warehouse, you're working in more that food service B2B moment. I can't wait to see you go B2C one day.
One day. I definitely want to. I think we're a super lean team. It's only 3 of us, and I'm the one that's doing most of the sales and travel and education. And so we definitely need the team to grow a little bit before we get into this whole different world of like retail. I definitely want to get into retail at some point.
So my background is ultimately in storytelling, and I'm going to be asking people what you think your storytelling secret ingredient is in terms of how you're positioning your brand and your product really standing out so that people say, okay, I'm in 100%.
I think people really see my passion and my dedication to the product. And I think that, again, is that mutual understanding, respect of kind of like, we've both worked in kitchens. We both understand what it takes to create the products like they're creating, the chefs are creating. And so I think that people get really excited about that. I'm not just another salesperson that's coming in, that's trying to sell them on a product. I'm there to show them based off of my training, what I was able to create. And I think that people can really get behind that a lot faster. Like I never go in thinking that I'm going to sell a product. I literally just tell them my story, and people really resonate with that. And so once they then hear my story and then they try my product, they're like, this is incredible. I'm definitely going to use it. And so we do work with the Chef's Warehouse. So they were our first distribution partner. They're a nationwide distributor, so they really helped us to grow. Starting from New York City, in the first 5 months, I launched in 5 of their distribution centers. They had 18 in the US and Canada. Yeah, so now I'm in all of those distribution centers, but it took, a lot of time and energy of traveling to these different regions to meet with the different sales reps, to meet with the chefs that were in the region, to educate and train both the sales reps and the chefs. And so it took 18 months more or less to get into all of those distribution centers, including in Canada. So we're in Canada, and it's really fun to be able to just meet different chefs and be like, oh, I work in the Cayman Islands, or I work in Aruba, and we have your butter. I'm like, that's amazing.
Sick.
Take care of that. Yeah. So it's really cool to hear where the butter is going and what chefs are using it. And I'm super thankful for the Chef's Warehouse. We also work with Webster on Store. Again, I wanted to make sure that if there are any chefs that maybe are cottage bakers or are not within the radius of a Chef's Warehouse distribution center, that they would have access to the butter. Obviously, we're going to offer more products and more regions, and just wanting to make sure that everyone who wants some butter gets it. So,
yes.
And then retail.
Yes. I mean, I think your storytelling secret ingredient is a relatability then, because you understand your customer more than anyone, and then they see how passionate you are about it. So ultimately you have that built-in trust because you know where they've been. instead of, yeah, like a salesperson essentially on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like I know what it was like to be working in a kitchen and to have a sales rep come in and try and tell me about this product that I have no use for, or don't really have the time to talk about, or, it's like I understand what that relationship looks like. And so I want to try and make it as easy as possible. Like I can get in and out in like 15 minutes. And yeah, like I don't want to waste anyone's time. Here's the information. Here's the sell sheet. Here's my email. Try the products, learn everything that you can. I'll give you a call later if you have any other questions.
In and out.
In and out. We've got things to bake, like we got things to do. So, and
the kitchen's still moving. Yes.
It really is. And so I think that helps having that background where I have that language, I have that knowledge of what it's like to be on the other side of it. So
definitely. I mean, you have such an interesting background, like coming from New York City, you have been all over the country and world in terms of your career as well. I'm so curious. It's nice that you started in New York. You're in one of the top food capitals of the world. When you were even just saying regions, I'm like, oh, I'm so curious about how the South responded to this. The Midwest responded to this. I'm sure the West Coast was excited. And then I'm also thinking like, okay, you're in the US right now, but yeah, Europe's going to be amazing. I'm just so curious how that's going to go, because Europe seems open to plant-based eating, but at the same time, they come from this very traditional background in terms of cooking and baking. What are some of your predictions in terms of plant-based eating? My hope is it only keeps growing. But then you saw, the tests that say like 11 Madison did, where they're like, we're going plant-based. And then it's like the whole country went, no.
I mean, the way that I see plant-based kind of evolving is I think we're going to see less and less of the all vegan restaurants. Mm-hmm. And I think that like I am married to somebody who's not plant-based. And so we need to be able to eat together in an establishment that we're both excited and happy about, and neither one of us is sacrificing. And so I think really where the trend is going is that more people, more chefs, I mean, they understand that there is a demand for plant-based. They're going to integrate it into their menus. It's not going to be a fully plant-based menu, because if we just think about it from like a pure business perspective, only like 2% of the US population is vegan. And so, yeah, and like that varied, right? And so if you're only trying to market to 2% of the population, like these people are not going to be eating at your restaurant every night. And so that makes it really challenging to stay in business. And ultimately, like everybody needs to stay in business. We need to have a business that's successful. And I say this to chefs all the time, like you need to have items on your menu, whether that's like a sit-down restaurant or a bakery, where anybody that walks through your door can have something that, that they can order. And so I think that that's a very important message that I try and really instill in people. And like, it's only going to help your business by having foods that everybody can eat. And so, yeah, like the vegan community got hit a little bit hard in the last few years, but ultimately I think that it's a much bigger conversation about other ingredients, specifically plant-based meats. And I think people were not ready for that. They weren't ready for those products. I think that it's a little bit different with plant-based dairy products, because I think a lot of people are lactose intolerant. And so, yeah, people are moving away from milk when they can have oat milk in their coffee, because ultimately they feel better after consuming it, or like opting for something that's dairy-free, just again, because it makes them feel better after eating those products. So I think that market is still growing and thriving, and like really high quality products are coming out of that. And it's just helping the industry just get higher and higher quality.
Yeah. I love how you're thinking about this. It's not cannibalizing meat. It's not cannibalizing not plant-based products the same way. One of our more recent guests is in the non-alc space, and he's like, I'm not trying to take away your alcohol sales. I'm providing you, like you said, with a wider audience. More people can feel comfortable coming in. It's the same with me with my food allergies. Like, I so appreciate where I've seen even bakeries just, even if there are, say, nuts on the premises, like they're just taking so much more care and just taking those steps. And like you said, the baby steps of your foundational ingredients versus maybe there wasn't enough market testing done for, say, some of these plant-based meats. I've tried them. Some are great. Some are, like we said about the butter, like what the heck?
Yeah. It's rich.
And it's not about trying to change an entire population's habits overnight, but it's with step by step. And so
Yeah.
That's where I'm excited. Oh, I'm actually going to a vegetarian restaurant tomorrow night that I'm really excited to try in Columbus.
He's like, oh,
Yeah. So it's like, great. I'm going to have beans and amazing veggies and other ways that you can get the nutrients I'm looking for, all with incredible flavor. So I'll report back.
please. I love it. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I've had incredible meals in all plant-based restaurants. Like, there are some incredible chefs who I know and deeply respect, and I go to their restaurants all the time. Like, they are truly incredible, and it is possible. I think that just if we're looking at the overall trends of where the industry is going, it's less on that front.
Yeah. Let's get to the double-digit percentages first, and then we can keep pushing really hard.
Exactly.
Suzanne, this is so hard because like I can really yap with people like you forever because this is so interesting to me and to the folks listening in. Couple last few questions here for you before the world's best and hardest question. So
Okay.
I want to hear what partnerships or collaborations are you manifesting for 2026 and beyond? Like who would be someone that you're like, oh my gosh, if they used and promoted Tourlami in whatever way, maybe it's on social or some other marketing channel, that you would just be over the moon?
It's so hard because there are so many chefs that not only like they already use the butter or like that I want to use the butter, but I think it's more with the launch of our frozen ready to bake cookie line. Like I want to go into like every airport and like every like airline. I want to go get into like every hotel, like I just have these really big, broad dreams. So it's not necessarily one specific person. It's more of industries that I'm really excited for the product to break into, universities, like all that stuff. So I'm excited and I want to share more of Tourlami in different capacities. So I think that's like what I am manifesting was like the launch of these new frozen ready to bake products.
And that's definitely next in your journey here too. What are you most proud of so far before you're going to get started on the retail side of things?
That I've done what I've done. I think sometimes it is really hard, and I definitely get into this trap of just thinking about what's next, as opposed to really looking back and saying, like, look at all that I've accomplished. It's, of course, taken the team that I had to be able to get to this place, but I'm just like, I'm super proud that I had this idea and that I worked really hard on it and that I was able to launch it and I didn't take no for an answer and that I was able to create a product that chefs are actively using. I mean, like, that's just like truly a dream come true for me. So I'm super proud.
You should be. And I love taking these moments too to reflect because founders, we just live in the future. We're like, okay, I'm working on this thing right now because I'm trying to make X thing happen tomorrow. And in 6 months from now, it's this constant pressure of, oh, I have to be bigger and better than what's been there before, even for yourself. And so it's very good to look at how far you've come to just be really grateful of where you are today too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I try and remind myself as much as I can, but like things are good and I'm doing a good job.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. What is one piece of advice that you'd give someone who's looking to be an entrepreneur themselves, whether it is within that food, bev, food service, pastry space, or really any other industry here?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give is that everything takes much longer than expected and it's more expensive. I think that's something that I was told all the time and I was like, no, it's going to be different for me. And then I got really stressed when like the arbitrary timelines that I set for myself didn't actually happen. And so I think it's okay to just understand that there's going to be a lot that's out of your control. Like for me, when I was launching Tourlami, that was the most important thing in the world to me and nothing else mattered. But Tourlami was not the most important thing to the ingredient suppliers that I was working with. Like I was just another person that they needed to supply to. So things are going to come up and you just need to be able to navigate it and not be so stressed out about it because there's so much that was out of my control. And so I think that's the biggest piece of advice I could give is that like it's going to be really hard.
It's going to be really hard. It's going to be out of your control, which is tough for one, pastry chefs and rule followers like you.
And a Virgo on top of that. So, it's just
I was so going to ask you that next because hello. I like, as you were talking, I was like, wow, this sounds like me.
Yeah, I give a lot of Virgo energy and it's something that I would like maybe try and work on, but
I think it's good.
It just makes me who I am. So,
Yeah, it leans into the sense of like, yeah, we feel like we have to have control to make things perfect. And it's just like, you can't all the time, or else you're just going to stress yourself out like every single second.
yeah. Totally.
Oh, I knew we got along. Well, Susannah, we are at what we say is the world's best and hardest question. Reminder for folks, This is called the perfect bite, not only because it's a perfect bite of the folks along our value chain of the food and bev industry, but because we each have our own perfect bites, something you tasted that you'll never forget that will always make you happy. So, Susannah, what is your perfect bite?
My perfect bite is from this restaurant called Pietramala in Philly. They are an all-vegan restaurant, but they're like one of the best restaurants I've ever been to. And they made this schnitzel made out of, oh my God, of course I'm blanking on it. It was a rutabaga schnitzel. And it was just it was incredible. Like the sauce that they paired with it was incredible. It was crispy. It was just like the textures were amazing. The flavors were amazing. Everything that they create is like incredible. I think that is going to stay with me for a very long time. So.
Oh, that sounds so good. That made me think of my favorite dish on a tasting menu from Mexico City last year that my partner Tim and I had. And we had incredible food that whole night. And when we had to go, what was your favorite thing? I was like, it really was that little baby eggplant with this one sauce.
That is just like the most simple, straightforward food.
All from the earth.
That's it. That's what I get down with.
Well, Susannah, this has been incredible. Can you let our listeners know here your social accounts, the website, any partners, essentially where to find Tourlami?
Yeah, it's just literally at Tourlami. That's like all of our socials, our website, tourlami.com. We work with the Chef's Warehouse and Webster Store, so you can find us online. Reach out. Always love connecting with new chefs, getting you samples. So
let's do it.
We're here.
Let's get more plant-based butter in the hands of amazing chefs, folks. And one day in our own kitchens.
One day. Maybe some cookie dough too.
I'm so ready. I'll be a taster here.
We have like tablet coming in soon for tests.
Oh no.
So, what am I going to do with all these cookies?
Okay. It's going to take a lot of self-control.
Yeah. I'm going to make a lot of new friends.
Gosh, this is a good problem. Susannah, thank you again so much for joining me. This was such a pleasure. And everyone, thank you so much for listening in. This was Susannah Schoolman's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media at Perfect Bite Pod. Now go get something good to eat.